Hey guys, welcome back to Hardly Working. Today, probably tomorrow, and probably the next day, I'll be rebuilding this shed ramp that goes up into our pool shed. As you can see, it's in a lot of disrepair right now. We got boards falling off the edges. I don't think this thing was built with treated lumber, so I'm gonna do my best to try and make this look a lot better around here, and with all new lumber, rebuild a brand new ramp for the shed. So I'm not gonna have like a perfect set of plans, and it's not gonna be a perfect step-by-step process. I'm just gonna show you how I did it. This is not exactly telling you how you should do it. This is just how I did it for this particular shed and this particular landscape around here. So I guess the first thing to do is to rip out the old ramp. Take all this rotten wood out of here. These boards just come right off. This thing is rotten. I'll come pick all that up with a skid steer in a while. So just like that, we have ourselves a clean slate. This is what's left of the old ramp here. Look at that. I'm not gonna say that was pressure treated. So the first thing I wanna do is get all the dirt pulled away from the shed. As you can maybe see, this is kind of our pump house for the shed. For the pool, we have the boiler, sand filter, and chlorinator, as well as the pump itself in this shed. So that's its main purpose, and we also use it as kind of a winter storage. In the winter, we drive our big, heavy diesel zero turn up into this shed, so we want it to be nice and secure for that. That's why it needs to be such a stout ramp. So I think I might bring in the skid steer to help me move a lot of this dirt out of the way and help grade this back down to how I want it after I fill in some of these dog holes with the dirt that we just got. So yeah, we'll get some better shoes and the skid steer, and we can start moving some of this dirt out of the way. So I got the skid steer. I think what I'm gonna try and do is see how this spot here is kind of built up with dirt compared to this surface here. This is just a lot higher. I'm just gonna get all this dirt taken out of here so that it's just a flat with this surface here, so that it just goes straight to the crushed asphalt. Pretty sure what my dad did is when he installed this ramp, he just added a bunch of dirt here to put that on top of. I'm actually gonna secure the next one to the shed and possibly to the ground with some blocks underneath there, just because I don't know how strong that bottom board is. That's what I'm gonna try and do with the skid steer. Here's Mac, my dog. Hey, buddy. The rest of this work I gotta kind of do by hand with the rake. So let's get raking. No. What's nice about this is there's not too much of a slope, so it's not bad. Theoretically, we could probably just put dirt up to there, but it's gonna wash away and just, you want there to be a nice transition between the two so nobody's tripping. The slope, it's about a 6-inch, maybe 8-inch drop. Here's the other dog, Archie. I think what I want to do first is I have put a 2x6. This board in here is not the greatest shape, but over here on the edges where it wasn't touching dirt is actually doing good. So if I can kind of secure it to here and there and a little bit along the way, This will add a lot of rigidity. This is ground contact pressure treated lumber. I don't think this was. So this is some good high quality lumber. Make a couple little notches around that edge of that trim there because it won't fit. So I'm gonna get it roughly centered here. So now I'm gonna make marks where I wanna make my notch. Bam, right there. Right there, and then measure up from the end of this for how deep it's got to be. Looks like 1.5 inches, so it should be the same. 1.5 inches about good. So I'm gonna go 1.5 inches for that. Here's my mark. I'm gonna go 1.5 inches. Let's go 1 3/4 inches actually. I want it to make sure it fits. So that should be good right there. And then we can not perfect, but it'll work. It's kind of our little notch there. I gotta do the same thing on the other side, but I'll cut this one out first. There's my first notch right there. Same thing on the other side. There we go. That fits perfect in place. Screw sticking out here from the old one. Screw, or I guess there's 2 of them maybe. Oh, taking out bent screws is like worst thing ever. Attach it down here. This doesn't hold it. Doesn't screw in very well. No sense in trying to screw with that because it's not doing anything. So I don't know what to say. Middle doesn't get screws, I guess. Kind of pulled it in there. Okay, I just took this gas line here. We had this all curled up here. I ran this from the house. You might be able to see it coming up over there. Yellow line there. Ran it over to here in the ground. Whenever I ran a irrigation pipe, I just ran this gas line at the same time. So it was all curled up here, but I put it nice underneath there and brought it up into the shed, so that when we're ready to install our natural gas boiler, it'll be there, ready to go. So that was easier to run that underneath there now that we have the no ramp up there. So now I got to figure out kind of a game plan. So in my mind, I'm picturing these boards butting up to this board here, a little bit lower because I'm using deck boards this way, bam, 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 as my boards. So I'm picturing my purlin, or whatever you want to call them, my supports, being a little bit lower, so whatever the width of those deck boards is will be flush with this, so it'll be a nice even transition. On the edges, I think I'm gonna use 2x6, probably about 4 or 5 feet, I think, to be a nice gradual ramp. And then I'm gonna cut angles on here, whatever that angle needs to be. I'm not sure yet. I think I gotta do some math in my head, and then I'll match that angle except the other way on the bottom, so that the board is nice and flat transition down to the ground. I guess let's start cutting a 2x6 for this edge over here and start laying that out. So these are 10-foot 2x6s. It's kind of just a little test here to see if this angle will work good. I'm gonna go ahead and cut this in half straight first. I think that's pretty good. Set that out here. I think this is gonna work. So now I gotta cut this edge kind of like that. Back here, my mark right, make a mark right there. Make my 10-degree mark right there. Well, I can't find anything straight in there, so I'm gonna use the board. There's my mark. It's not exact, but this is not exact science here. I think 10 degrees is gonna be a little bit closer because I gotta dig a lot of dirt out. So right in this region here, I gotta dig a lot of dirt out. I knew that was coming. Because remember, this has gotta be lower too. This has gotta be there. So I gotta dig a lot of dirt out if I'm gonna use this 2x6. Now, it's already looking a lot better. 10 degrees might have been a little bit excessive. We have to cut more like 5 degrees. Let's go back to the table. So I lost audio for the next couple clips. It won't be the whole rest of the video, but so I'm just gonna kind of walk you through on a little voiceover. So here I'm just talking about how I'm gonna space these out 16 on center. I'm gonna put a couple of supports going across the bottom, across those kind of like studs where they put braces between each stud and a wall. I'm gonna do that same thing on the bottom there to support everything. But I'm gonna do all the building off of the spot and then put the ramp in place once I'm done building the entire thing. That's my plan. And these are all gonna be 2x6s. I have 2x4s, but I'm gonna use the actual 2x4s to make my braces between the actual supports, including the two side ones, 2x6 supports. Or I'm just going to call them studs in this case. So I'm cutting this the same at 5 foot as my first couple were. My first one I made is going to be a stencil, so they're all going to be the same. Now I learned after my last cut, I learned not to make the cut in the middle of the sawhorses, make it on the end so it just falls off and doesn't get pinched by the blade, by the pressure onto the blade. Here I am grabbing that piece to use as a stencil. I'm just going to line up the two ends and then scribe that line where that 5-degree angle is. Basically just copy it onto the next 5-foot board. And later I talk about how I'm going to use the same stencil each time. I'm not going to cut one and then use the one I just cut as the stencil for the next one. You want them all to be based off of the same stencil so that you're not slowly increasing a problem. You know, like your line is going to be the same. You might know what I mean, but sometimes I don't explain things very well. Yeah, you can see the microphone's on my shirt. It's just not on at all, so not working. Here you can see I'm grabbing that next 5-foot board and using the same board as my stencil. And here's my stack of 5. So now that I have them all cut, it's time to lay them out in their 16 on center pattern. Just going to throw them roughly in place first. I'm going to measure the top plate. Or I'm used to building walls, I guess, but measure the, whatever you want to call it, plate, and get them all 16 on center and screw them into place here in a second. So here I got them all spaced, and I made marks for each one, and this is the last one. I'm just screwing it in with 2 deck screws. Just got to make sure that top is flush on all of them. So here I'm going to start putting in these braces to go in between each stud. So these are 14.5-inch blocks since they're 16 on center, and I'm basically just going to go between the two things like this right here, and then I'll have to stagger them in order to get screws into each and every one of them, because you can't just put them all in line or else you can't get your drill in there to attach them to the side. So here's where I got it all done. I'm going to slide it out of the way here in a second, and then I'm going to remove some more dirt with the skid steer. It's still quite high, and the ramp I built uses 2x6s, which take a lot of room. So I'm going to slide this out of the way and take out some more dirt. It's kind of hard to get the skid steer in here in this weird angle, but I'm just trying to shave. And there you can see I actually broke that wire right there. I turned off the breaker panel in advance, but that's just a Romex wire running straight to our pool deck for power, for things like the automatic vacuum, and we used to have lights on there and everything, so that is now broken, which sucks, but good thing I shut the power off. So here I'm getting my first couple deck boards on. I got it all leveled out. My plan here is to use an 8-foot board, and since the boards I bought are 12 feet long, which was kind of dumb on my part, I should have just bought 8-footers. I'm going to use an 8-footer and then 2 4-footers and then an 8-footer and 2 4-footers and just keep going down the line with that, because that way I don't have to... First of all, I only have 10 anyway, and I'd be cutting it close to see if I have 10 layers there. And second of all, a couple of 12-foot boards is easier to have as scrap to use in future projects as a bunch of 4-foot boards, if that makes sense. So that's what I'm talking about here. That's what I'm trying to decide on. I ended up doing just that, so it worked out good. All right, I'm back from eating some dinner. Now that I realized my microphones were off the whole time, I'm about to have to record a voiceover, so you already know that because you just watched what I did, but it's really a bummer that I lost all that audio. Yeah, as you can see, it's kind of loose right now. I'm gonna get dirt underneath all this when I'm done, so it'll kind of support it in every spot. But yeah, it's just kind of loose for now. The last few screws on this ramp here. There we go. Not done yet. I gotta do some landscaping. I gotta get this all butted up to the end of this and put dirt up around it. But yeah, that's looking pretty dang good, man. But yeah, like I said, these corners aren't very supported. So I kind of want some dirt underneath these corners, asphalt. So, I mean, that's pretty good. Get a little more dirt under this side. I need to bring in a little bit of fill. Looks like I gotta go rob some asphalt from the road. I'll get this all leveled out and I'll come back to you. So it's actually the next night. I got busy last night. My phone died. I couldn't finish recording this video. But the ramp is still standing, so that's a good sign. The dog has already dug up all my new asphalt. So I'm gonna be adjusting his GPS collar fence so that he can't come over here anymore. He's been digging all over this. He's trying to find a mouse or chipmunk or whatever is under there that he's trying to get. I can easily adjust that on my phone. I can adjust it in the app to keep him away from here. But anyway, I'm gonna go get some other things done that you're gonna see in the next video. I'm gonna go spray my new grass that I planted out by my old garden. Go weed all my new garden. I got some weeds coming up in some of the holes, choking out some of the watermelon plants. Gonna get that all taken care of. And for this video, that's gonna be it. So if I'm lucky, I'll catch you in the next one. Oh, and like and subscribe.